Your college basketball weekend is here.
Rise and fire. Count it. Instant classic. The slipper still fits. When they need baskets, they go to them. 2 to tie, a 3 will win it.
From Cinderella runs to covering at the buzzer, we've got your winning playbook covered. This is BetMGM U with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin on the BetMGM Network.
And the small conferences, they're already getting to it. The big boys, they're wrapping up the regular season, and we're here for you for all of it. It is BetMGM U alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. We are live coast to coast on the BetMGM Network, wherever you may be in the world, right there with you inside your Odyssey app. That's also how you get us in podcast form, AUDACY, or wherever you get your podcasts. You're looking to stay up to date. Follow us on all your socials at BetMGM Network and on YouTube as well. The BetMGM Network there for you as we get ready to dive into this final weekend of the regular season and conference tournament action. Let's start with where the big boys play in the SEC, because that's where we got some interesting stuff again this weekend, boys. We got Auburn's 6-game winning streak being snapped at Texas A&M. We got Florida. Is there anybody in this conference Florida cannot beat, winning another big one on Wednesday night? We got Houston entering the chat, not in the SEC, obviously, but entering the national title conversation. Maybe we get to the Cougars and the Blue Devils in just a second. Let's start in the SEC, John Martin. Feels like Auburn, I mean, look, they've been coasting for a while. The number 1 seed and the conference title, it's been theirs for a bit. If not mathematically, then certainly it's felt like they've had it in their back pocket. But here comes the Gators, and the Gators are charging hard at the end of this regular season.
Charging hard, are they?
Yes.
Gators are surprisingly fast on land.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sneaky fast.
Yeah.
You go like Billy Horschel and try to poke one of them things with a golf club, it might not turn out all right.
I would never dream or dare of doing something so reckless, because I cherish life. I truly do. But no, I mean, there's nothing sneaky about these Gators, fellas. I think we know that by now. RJ, obviously proud alum of the University of Tennessee, certainly knows what that Florida team is capable of. Having split, he's been in the wars with Florida. He knows.
Oh yeah.
One of few that has beaten Florida. Are they the only team that's beaten? Oh, Georgia and Tennessee are the two that have beaten them in the SEC. That is rare company right there. But no, I mean, I think, I've talked about this Florida team with our guys in the morning here, Sammy P and Joe. I mean, I think if you're pricing this, which I believe BetMGM has, I'm not sure why Florida's odds aren't better than Auburn's, because Florida's beaten Auburn. I mean, at Auburn without Elijah Martin. So
you're telling me 7-1 on a national championship bet as opposed to Auburn's 325.
Totally.
I mean, that's pretty decent value.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I definitely believe that Florida has with their bigs, with Condon, with Howe, with Handlockton, the other starting big they have. They are just so deep. They're so big. Their guards make shots. They have an All-American type guard in Walter Clayton Jr. So, I mean, you just show me where the weakness is with this Florida team. Todd Golden's doing a hell of a job. They're absolutely in that class of elites, and I'm not so sure that they shouldn't be, second.
They're tremendous, man. They really are. They can beat you in a number of different ways, and it's you don't think of them necessarily as like, oh, they're going to be top 10 in both offense and defense. No. They're one of the few. They are tremendous. And defensively, they're very, very good. They might not be a top 5 defensive team, but they're top 10, and they're solid. Like, I love Florida. I hate Florida. Let me be crystal clear on that one. But I do love the way they play. I love what they got going on, and they are a perfect example. You could do some magic in the portal, and you could do some magic when you build And then when you mix it together like they have, I mean, you really could find kind of that magic touch. And they're a team that I would be very, very scared. If you're if they're not somehow a 1 seed, let's say they get beat by Ole Miss this weekend, or let's say they get knocked out in the first round of the SEC, and they fall to a 2 seed, I don't want to be their 1 seed. I don't want any part of that.
Agreed totally.
Yeah, I mean, they're like every other SEC contender, it feels like, too, in that they excel on one end of the floor. Not that they can't play the other end of the floor, but they excel on one end of the floor, and they can go to town offensively. I mean, just look up and down the stat sheet how many guys are shooting near 40% from three on this team. And they can tear you up when they want to, or they can sit back and let you make your own mistakes, force you into turnovers as well on the defensive end. To your point, Choppy, 10th overall, KenPom, in adjusted defensive efficiency. So they can do it on both ends of the floor. We've been talking about Houston, to shift away from the SEC for just a second. We've been talking about Houston as one of those teams that can do it on both ends of the floor for a while now. And obviously the defensive end is more their specialty. But now, John, they vaulted into the top 10 in adjusted offensive efficiency as well. And look, we talked about it 2-3 weeks ago, them pushing themselves up onto the 1 line. That feels like a near certainty now.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a team that is probably not going to be thought of as a contender just because of, perception is a hell of a thing to overcome, like I deal with that, we all deal with forms of that, like RJ in his building, like his boss thinks he's a complete jackass, even though he's not. He's grown up a lot since then.
I have.
Yes,
he's
matured.
Perception. Yeah. That's still the perception. He's got to fight in his building every single day.
Every day.
And I think that Houston kind of has this perception of, oh man, they break down in the tournament. They can't shoot. They can't. And while those things have been true in the past, this is Kelvin's best offensive team ever. And by the way, that has not been at the expense of the defense, which is still as good as ever. It's a damn. They haven't lost since the Obama administration. It feels like, man. Like I don't know what they have to do, to get people talking. I mean, they don't have that. Here's the problem: they don't have that star. They don't have that Janai Broom. They don't have that Cooper Flag. They're lacking that. I mean, they have L.J. Cryer. They have Juwan Roberts. They have Milos Uzan, guys who are really freaking great college players, but that are not by any stretch of the imagination NBA players or household names. But they are better than the sum of their parts. And a lot of people in the next few weeks are going to learn that the hard way with Houston.
They're another team that you can't mess with because they're one of the 3 teams that are in the top 10 in both. It's Duke, it's them, and it's Florida of offense and defense. They're one of those teams. And the other thing is, like, they're always making runs in the tournament. They're always going, it seems like they're in the Elite 8 every year, under Sampson. And he's a tremendous coach, and he's been through the ringer there and back. They've got, you need guard play, they've got guard play. And that's what you need in this tournament. Like, they're a really solid team. And it's not like they also, and I think, the Big 12 in the past, the gauntlet that was the Big 12, may have kind of worn teams down. And I know they weren't always in that conference, but, the schedule they played, wore teams down. It's not the same conference. It's not the same conference that it has been. And I don't think you're going to get teams that are worn down. The SEC might be that conference, or it is that conference this year. That
it could be.
I mean, look at Alabama's schedule to end the year. I mean, they're going to be dead going into March Madness. So it sucks, man, if you're that team that you have all these teams at the very end. They're 9, 10.
Well,
4,
that was Houston. To your point, that was Houston last year.
Yes,
and they ended up losing Shed in the Sweet 16 against Duke. And I think that, like, I remember the Iowa State title game in the Big 12. Like, Juwan Roberts got hurt. They didn't want to play him in that one. And you're right. Like, this year, the league is much more manageable. It's not nearly as top to bottom as it used to be, or at least it was a year ago. So that's a good point, man. And by the way, I was just looking this up. Kelvin Sampson has the best record of any coach in America since 2018 when quad 1, 2, and 3 whatever games were introduced. He has the best record against quad 1 teams in America since then.
Wow.
33-12 is his record against quad 1 teams. 33-12.
Whew. And you can still get Houston at 9-1 to win the national championship at BetMGM. Here's a pricing mismatch I want to talk about. And I'm glad Choppy brought up teams facing a murderer's row schedule and it not being a Big 12 team in this instance. I want to bring up two teams that are right next to each other on the board at BetMGM right now. You can get Michigan State at 25-1 to win the national title. You can get Iowa State at 20-1. Iowa State is limping to the finish line. They have lost 3 of their last 4. All of a sudden, the schedule ramped up, right? They weren't playing TCU and Central Florida and Cincinnati and Colorado. All of a sudden, they got to go on the road to Houston. They got to host Arizona. They lose to BYU at home. So they've lost 3 out of their last 4, and they are priced at 20-1. But Michigan State, who has won 5 in a row, 4 of them against ranked teams in a row, on the road, at Ann Arbor, at College Park, on that buzzer beater last week, is sitting there at 25-1. So, I don't know. Explain that one to me, John, if you can. Are we in on Michigan State at 25-1? Can Izzo make that run?
Yeah, I think it's a really a fascinating situation because, they just, like you mentioned, winning 5 in a row against the teams they've done it against, Purdue, Michigan, Illinois, and some of those were road games, obviously, the way they handled Wisconsin in the second half last weekend. I think people are just reticent about them because maybe they think they've gotten lucky with Wisconsin shot. I've never seen Wisconsin shoot as poorly as they did from 3. I think they shot 15% or 20%. So I think there's that. People think that Michigan State is just kind of getting fortunate with misses. And I also think it's that Michigan State doesn't really have a singular individual player like a Flag, like a Broom that we were talking about, that they think it's a little bit more flimsy there than the other contenders. And I think that's probably true. With that being said, it should not shock anybody if Tom Izzo has this team in the Elite 8. I think that's kind of where I would draw the line with them, though.
I'll tell you, I don't have a great feel on Michigan State at 25-1. I'll tell you, if Texas Tech is at 40-1, I'm all over. That's the one you got to jump on. They are. I think the only difference between them and say my school, Tennessee, is that we've been more consistently good lately. They're every bit as good as Tennessee is. They're virtually very little difference. I think Texas Tech is a phenomenal team. 40-1, give it to me, all over it.
Give it to them.
Give it to me
right now. He said,
we got to get sports betting legalized in Texas, man, just for this.
What's it like making all those drives to Oklahoma to legally bet on the reservation?
Yeah, going across the border.
It's they don't have sports betting either.
Well, you can't go to a reservation and bet?
You can play blackjack, craps. They got casinos, but they don't have sports betting. You got to go to Louisiana for that.
They
got a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, you can do that. Shreveport's beautiful this time of year.
It's wonderful. It's fantastic. I love Shreveport.
He spends his weekends. He spends his weekends in Louisiana so he can bet like a maniac. That's what he does. He doesn't like to talk about it, but he's a maniac.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up. I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, get off his job, Chris. Let the man bet.
You're putting my business on blast. Come on now.
Let him bet.
John's already called you out for the boss hating you. Look.
That was in the listen, that was a compliment.
Listen, it doesn't help that I wear a hoodie to work every day. So.
Was it a compliment or was it a little bit of a backhanded compliment?
I don't get into grading compliments. All compliments are compliments. Yeah.
Yep. Backhanded or forward-handed. It's all news is good news.
There was a little bit of shade there. Just the tiniest bit.
That's right. It was.
I enjoy poking at RJ. I gotta say, it's one of my favorite pastimes.
It is the final weekend of the college basketball regular season here on BetMGMU, and we got some big games to break down. We got the Duke North Carolina rivalry. Are the Heels still alive? Is there some way they can sneak their way in? A big one in the Big East between St. John's and Marquette, and the Iron Bowl on the hardwood between Bama and Auburn. Plenty to get to. We'll continue to break it all down, and we'll give you our best bets before we wrap up as well. Maybe even some mid-major teams that we like as those get going in a lot of spots this weekend as well. Live coast to coast on the BetMGM network, wherever you may be in the world, inside your Odyssey app, maybe in podcast form right now. You're listening to us wherever you get your podcasts, AUDACY, alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. You got it locked in on BetMGMU.
You've been listening to BetMGMU on the BetMGM network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Let's get back to BetMGM on the BetMGM Network.
Hard to believe we've arrived at the final weekend of the regular season, but here we are, BetMGM, getting you ready for all that action this weekend alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. Once again, we are live coast to coast every Friday night and Saturday morning on the BetMGM Network. Don't forget, you miss anything, you get it in podcast form by simply logging in to the Odyssey app and subscribing, following BetMGM. Actually, wherever you get your podcasts, you can pick us up, and we're there for you. Getting you ready for, like I said, the final weekend of the regular season. 3 big matchups. We got one in the Big East for you. We got one in the ACC, and we got one in the SEC. Let's start there. Saturday afternoon, 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Alabama Crimson Tide visiting the Auburn Tigers. Ken Pom has this thing projected at an 11-point spread, John, in favor of Auburn. Auburn won the first matchup by 9, so it's not that far off. They've secured the regular season title now, top overall seed in the SEC tournament. They're 6th in program history, but 3rd in the last, I want to say, 6 seasons. And fresh off a loss on Saturday at A&M, we mentioned that earlier, feels like a good spot to Auburn go into the postseason on a bit of a high. I don't know about a double-digit spread if that's what we end up seeing, though.
0% chance. 0% chance this will be anywhere close to 11. I mean, it's going to be closer to 5 or 6, if that even. And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't matter to Auburn. I mean, it doesn't. It could be a game that they actually just punt. You know? I mean, if you're Auburn, think about it. You have 15 quad 1 wins, guys. You have now, I'm not talking about since Bruce Pearl got the job. He has 15 this season, okay? And so if you're Auburn, like, sure, you want to get the number 1 overall, okay? But you'll have chances to improve your resume in the SEC tournament. You know? I mean, you have more chances. I heard somebody say that Auburn would have to lose, this was before the Texas A&M game, but they'd have to lose 3 more times just to not be the number 1 overall. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Meanwhile, Alabama has lost 2 straight. They have to win this game to stay in consideration for the 1 seed, and they got to get Auburn back for the win there in Tuscaloosa. So no, we will not get 11, and I will likely be on Alabama in this game.
Man, I totally agree. It's not going to be 11, and if it's anywhere close to that, I am going to be all over Bama. That said, I don't know, man. Like, something about Bama just doesn't sit right with me. I know Sears had 30 against Florida. That was the softest 30 points I ever seen.
Wow.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I mean, what do you mean soft? What was so soft about it?
He was terrible. It was like the worst 30-point game ever. It was one of those Jordan games where he went like, hey, it was like one of those Jordan games where he went like
4 of 20 from the field.
He was inefficient. Yeah, he was inefficient.
And then just made like 18 free throws. And then, 30 years later, we're going to wax poetic about how great he was.
It was an Embiid 30. It was an Embiid 30 is what you're saying.
I respect that. I respect where you're coming from on that. Yeah.
Like he's not a big-time player. I'm just sorry. He's not. He doesn't show up in any of these big games.
RJ is coming with the hot takes today.
Hold on. Let me pull the pin and lob this one in.
You didn't warn us. You didn't text us before the show and said you were coming like this, RJ.
I just came up with it right now. Okay, this is the thing. It just comes through my head, and I get one thing that pops into my head, and then I run with it.
This is going to be bulletin board material. Mark Sears, not a big-time player.
Look, they got to clip this up. The social media team has to clip this up. RJ says Mark Sears is not a big-time player.
Look, I got a group chat, the VFLs, the Vols for Life, okay? We all rag on Mark Sears the entire time. And, we're just dogging on him on that Florida game. And then, of course, we went out and we laid an egg against Ole Miss like later on that night. But, yeah, he's just,
God don't like ugly.
No, he don't. He doesn't. But, listen, I mean, he puts up big numbers, but his numbers just, they're sometimes inefficient. And when he comes up against a big-time team, he just has inefficient games. So it scares me. But, John's right. This game doesn't matter to Auburn. If Auburn's not the 1 seed overall, then the committee just isn't paying attention. Is Danny Cannell running things over there just to hate on the SEC whenever he gets a chance? Like, there's no market for Auburn not being the overall number 1. They've got 15 quad 1 wins.
All right, so here's my question for you guys then, because we looked at Bama totals all year long. This would end up being the 3rd highest total in a Bama game if it goes off at 175.5 that we've seen all year. They've covered the over in each of the two other higher totals. There was a 179, I want to say, when they went to Lexington. That got covered. And Florida, just this past week, that got covered at 178.5. If it means nothing to Auburn and Bama's just going to go out there and chuck and duck and we get non-impact player Mark Sears putting up 35 field goal attempts, John, are we go flying over the total here?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I need to know if Denver Jones is playing. He didn't play in the last one for Auburn against Texas A&M, and I mean, it was a higher scoring game, but, it was in the 70s. I think they finished in the 70s. And it basically leaves the point guard duties to Hod Pettiford. So if he's not in, I would be more inclined to take the under here. I know that's like really scary with anytime Alabama plays a game because their offense is it's just nutty. But if you're not getting Denver Jones in this one for Auburn, I tend to believe it's going to be more of a grinded out type of game. And so I would definitely take the under here but if he's in, I would bet the over. If he's in, I'm so it just all depends on whether or not he's going.
All depends on how Mark Sears looks, right, Choppy?
Well, listen, I'll tell you another thing, okay? I don't like people who wear the number 1. All right? I don't like players who wear the number 1. It's a look at me number. Okay? So yeah, I said it. I just go down.
Nobody can wear number 1. Do you have this opinion in football too?
Yes, I do. Big time. 23%
so
against Auburn.
Should it be off limits? Nobody gets to wear number 1.
Yeah, I think it's very look at me. You give it to the smallest kid in high school, right? It's the littlest kid in high school because the jerseys are sized. The number 1 player, smallest kid of the team, smallest kid of the team, not an impact player. And then you get to college, and that's just very look at me. Yeah, and it's a shame because I like him, but it's just not an impact. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna say? I just speak the truth.
I prefer that though to the guy that we've played out the number 0 thing, right? Oh, my high school coach said I'm never going to play any minutes at the next level. Yeah. We've that whole trope has been played out too many times. So we can't do 0 either.
Yeah.
We can't do 0, sir. I'm wearing glasses. I don't know if you knew that or not. I'm wearing glasses, so I need to use extra good vocabulary.
I have to take into account anything you say about numbers right now. Anything you say about numbers, even if it's just uniform numbers, I have to take it more seriously. You have a clicky pen and glasses on. And is that a notepad? You
that
know
a
that's
whiteboard?
forbidden. That is
Absolutely.
forbidden on this show, John Martin.
So look at all these numbers. All these numbers. I've got all these numbers right here. You can't
Did you
see
write
them.
those down? Did you write those down yourself with glasses on?
I certainly did, only with my glasses on.
I'm just going to let you finish the show by yourself. I don't think we have anything to add.
Well, no, listen, it doesn't make me a communications major, okay? Let's not get crazy here. It just makes me a math guy. But yeah, I think we need to do away with 0 and 1. I'm willing to make that trade. I'm willing to make that deal. If Choppy is saying we have to do away with 1, let's just do away with 0.
Also
And
0?
we start at 2.
What about double zeros?
Oh,
Jail.
man. Yeah.
Jail.
I don't know. Double
prison.
0, though. That's the chief, right?
Yeah, it's Robert Parrish, man.
Who is wearing double? No, nobody gets to wear 0. That's absolutely outrageous.
It should be retired. It's retired.
Okay. No,
Plus,
especially
it screws
in basketball.
up roulette. It's 0 and double 0 screw up roulette.
But you know what double zeros remind me of? A good pair of eyeglasses, like our good friend John is wearing. Reminds me of smart people.
Yes, it does.
Somebody's got to do it on this show. Somebody's got to bring some levity.
Somebody's got to be the bright one with the notepad full of numbers. Somebody's got to fulfill that trope, which I think is a fish. Saturday, 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. Number 2 Duke Blue Devils visit Chapel Hill. Okay, Duke, likewise, much like Auburn, has 0 to play for, but this is Duke UNC, and the Tar Heels need every single win they can get to maybe sneak in as one of the last 4 in. Maybe I would have to think the Blue Devils would love to crush some Tar Heel dreams on Saturday night, John. How do we read this one? Ken Pom has this similarly at a big fat double-digit spread, Duke -12.
I think Duke actually does have some ACC tournament seeding to still play for. I don't think that because of their loss to Clemson, I think they have that to play for. So although that really may not be much, it is something. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, listen, North Carolina's played better basketball over the last couple of weeks, but they've been playing us. I mean, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Syracuse. I mean, this has been the weakest 6-game winning streak you'll see in college basketball. So I'm not even close to pretending that this North Carolina team is somehow different than what we saw at the beginning of the year. And I'm certainly not betting against Duke here. I'm not saying that I'm running to bet. I don't think it'll be 12. I think it'll be lower than that because of the obvious incentive for North Carolina to win this game. But if it gets to be something interesting like 7.5 or 8, it may not be that. It might be like 9.5. That I might even be enticed by Duke 9.5 just because they're complete sickos and they don't really have a weakness as we talked about.
Yeah, I would be enticed by them. Anything under 10, I'm probably on. I'll tell you this. I mean, Duke does, I think, they have something to play for because if they were to lose this, let's say they lose this and the first round of the ACC tournament, okay? Let's just put that out there. That puts them at, 29 and 5, 27 and 5? All right, you're 27 and 5. Are you going to take them over a 4-loss Florida? Who plays a brutal schedule, 6-loss Tennessee. If they win the tournament, if either one of those two teams wins the conference tournament, are you going to take them over them? I don't know.
I think the committee would. I think the committee would, and they'd bump Houston back down to the 2 because they've had no problem holding Houston at a 2 all year. But I think it's a valid point.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't think of Houston. I put Houston in automatically, but you're right. And that's one of the things. So I think there's still something to play for. Auburn, I don't think has anything to play for. They've got so many quad 1 wins. They've done so much damage over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. Duke, unfortunately, I believe the term John used was black swan event a couple of weeks back. But, when playing a ranked team in the ACC. But, I mean, Duke just doesn't have a great resume. Like their resume is they've dominated teams. But they lost to Kansas. They lost to Kentucky. They beat Auburn. All right, they get that. That's worth a lot of points, but they've basically gotten beat by the only teams in Clemson that they played in their schedule. Their tournament teams.
So just for the sake of this argument, and I got out a notepad, is a notebook with a pencil now too, so I can take notes here. John.
I've got one too.
Oh, okay. Take notes here because I'm going to ask John a really important question, and he's got glasses on, so I think he's going to give us a really good answer. Who still has to worry about staying on the one line? Does Duke? Are those fears that RJ just outlined legitimate if Duke somehow should lose to UNC and lose early in the ACC tournament? You think they could drop off the one line?
Yeah.
Reminder, I'm taking notes.
Yes, I would say they could because the ACC is so bad this year, and losing 2 games in the ACC, which has its lowest rating in the last 20 years at Ken Pom, I think they would get dinged for that in a major way. So I think it's possible. I mean, I don't believe that they will do those things, but if they do those things, and again, like let's say one of Alabama or Tennessee decides they're going to win for the rest of the way. Okay, so now you have Houston to talk about, you have Florida to talk about, and one of Alabama or Tennessee, as we stipulated in this case, has won 4 or 5 in a row, and the SEC tournament championship. Okay, so yes, I would say that would be the scenario, but it would take all of those things conspiring to happen.
I wrote all that.
You get all that? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow.
I wrote down. Yeah. Look, I wrote down. Yes, he said it could happen, especially because the ACC sucks. I wrote that down.
That's exactly right.
I learned how to be concise in my note taking, so I took everything you said and just wrote, yes, he said it was possible because the ACC sucks. I mean, it's not the same as all the notes you have and all the numbers and charts and graphs, but I think it's pretty succinct.
I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to wrap it up in bottom line, man.
And that's another big word that, I'll be honest, I only used because you're wearing the glasses. Succinct.
It's good.
Very succinct thing I did with the eyeglasses trope. We have another game to talk about. Plus our best bets before we wrap up and we take a look at some mid-majors who've already gotten started this weekend as well, alongside RJ Choppy and the bespectable, I can't say it. He's wearing glasses. John Martin. This is BetMGMU.
You've been listening to BetMGMU on the BetMGM network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Let's get back to BetMGM on the BetMGM Network.
Alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy, I'm Chris Mack. This is BetMGM, getting you ready for all the action this weekend. Next weekend, we'll be in the midst of the major conference tournaments. Their regular season wrapping up this weekend, obviously. But we've got mid-major and small conference tournaments already underway in some cases, or about to get underway later this weekend. We get into some of those in just a couple of minutes. Our best bets before we wrap up as well. Don't forget, if you missed anything, you can always get us in podcast form wherever you get your podcast. Just search BetMGMU, and you can take us with you wherever you're going, whatever you're doing. If you're not near one of those BetMGM Network affiliates where we're on every Friday night and Saturday morning, download the free Odyssey app, AUDACY, and listen to the BetMGM Network there. Before we get into those other conference tournaments, before we get into our best bets, let's talk about the game we did not get to of the three that we wanted to make sure we talked about this week. And it's noon Eastern, 11 Central, St. John's at Marquette Saturday. Red Storm securing their first outright Big East regular season title since 1985. They did win the first matchup between these two, 70-64 at the Garden about a month ago, February 4th. Ken Pom has Marquette favored by 2 in this one, John. I imagine a lot of that probably has to do with a similar dynamic to what we talked about in the Auburn-Alabama matchup earlier, which is St. John's really has nothing to play for here.
Although I do think their situation is a little bit different because, you know, they have to continue to win and they can't improve their seed, right? They have a chance to,
they do,
in theory, like get up to a 2, stay a 2, whatever you think they are. You know, there's a small chance they can improve it. So, yes, while they have wrapped up their league, you know, they will definitely take this game very seriously in a way that Auburn just won't. Auburn's fate is sealed, right? So I do think this is a great opportunity to bet St. John's. I really do, because Marquette is just a team that has proven time and time again when they get in these high leverage situations. Well, I mean, they got swept by UConn, man. I mean, that's in this year, that's not something that's supposed to happen. It's just not. This UConn team is certainly not what it was last year or 2 years ago. So I think St. John's is going to take it to them. Obviously, it was a closer one there in Madison Square, but I really like St. John's in this game because I think stylistically it's really the worst kind of matchup for a team like Marquette.
Man, I totally agree. I mean, I love St. John's here. They've got something to play for. I don't trust Marquette too. But The one thing that would hold me back on this is that, when you finally have won the conference, you are like the hunted now, and playing with success, playing from that position to where now you're being chased. It is a different animal, and every athlete will tell you something's just different about it. That is the one hesitancy that I would have, but overall, I think it's a really good matchup for St. John's, and I think that they would cover.
Yeah, I hate to be just a broken record here, but I lean in on the same sentiments both of you had about St. John's and Marquette here. St. John's money line might be my best bet of the weekend. You might hear that again in a couple minutes before we wrap up the show. The Marquette thing, I think, is a good point, Choppy. Concerns me more than anything else. Mid-majors to keep an eye on before conference tournament weekend. We've got teams out there that, I don't know, maybe we haven't paid a lot of attention to be honest. The Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, Arch Madness, for example, is underway. Drake ranked 60th in KenPom. They're the top seed in that tournament. Ben McCollum, first-year head coach, has them out to a 27-3 record in his first season. We've got McNeese and Will Wade looking to go back to their second consecutive NCAA tournament. We've got High Point, ranked 88 in KenPom, under former Creighton assistant Alan Huss. They're being talked about as well. Never been to an NCAA tournament. So when we start to push past the major conferences, John, is there a team or two, in your opinion, that maybe we should have an eye on, especially as those small conferences and mid-majors get going this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think McNeese State under Will Wade is always going to be at the top of that list for me. He's probably going to be in the mix at Texas. He's going to be in the mix for big jobs. His teams are really tough, and they got a bad matchup last year. Who was it? Was it Gonzaga last year that they had? I'm almost positive that it was Gonzaga in the first round last year, and that was a brutal matchup, right? I mean, that's a tough draw. But I think generally speaking, they're going to have a chance to win most of the games that they play. They beat North Texas earlier this year. There's a tough team, man. And I think Will Wade's a really good coach who's been to a Sweet 16, so you don't really catch coaches with that kind of experience, at a school like McNeese. So they would be definitely at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, McNeese really is one of those teams. I do like Drake, even though the one time this year I took Drake in the game. Actually, I did the over. It was them and Bradley. I took the over, and it missed by like 2 points. But I do think Drake is a really solid team, and they're going to wind up being underseeded probably. Not underseeded where they're like an 11, but they're going to be underseeded a little bit. Maybe they might be 11, maybe more like a 12. They're not going to be underseeded like that, but I'm not going to want to see them if I'm in the tournament. If I'm a higher seed in this thing, there's no way. If you're a 3 seed and you run in them in the second round or something, you're not going to want any part of that.
Yeah, I'd say the one that I definitely would have an eye on would probably be Liberty. I think they still need a couple of wins to cement their spot off the bubble, or maybe get in right at the back end as an 11 or 12. So they've played really well this year. Offensively, they're solid. I don't think anybody's going to get super excited about them, but defensively, they will lock you down. They are top 40 in KenPom and adjusted defensive efficiency. And with a lot to play for, they need to go on a little bit of a run in the Conference USA tournament if we're talking about mid-majors and small conference teams to keep an eye out for. All right, best bets for what is a busy, busy final weekend of the college basketball regular season. If you got one, if you got a few, tell us what you like, which direction you're looking. Sure, the spreads may not be out yet, but I'm sure there's a couple games we've got our eyes on, John.
Yeah, it'll be Alabama for me versus Auburn for all the reasons that we talked about, because it doesn't really matter that much to Auburn. They might have their starting point guard in Denver Jones out, and this Bama team, man, is going to be extremely desperate. I know it's quote-unquote on the road, but, you're never too far from home at Auburn, right? Tuscaloosa, Auburn. So I like it. Again, it's not going to be 11. I'll snatch it up. It'll be probably one of my biggest bets of the year if it is. But even if it's 8.5, 9.5, I still think it's good, and I'll be on the Crimson Tide and NATO's this weekend.
Yep. I'll take the same. Collab. Let's collab, baby. No reason not to.
Hey, this went well during football season.
You're just saying it because he's got glasses on this weekend and a notebook and a pen.
What if I told you it was 8.5? If it was 8.5, what would you say?
I'd still take it. I'd really take anything outside of 5, honestly. I mean, I really would. So,
yeah,
I think Alabama wins the game. I do. So there's really, if I'm getting points, getting a couple possessions, I'm on it.
Yeah, I like Bama with the points in this one. Again, it doesn't matter to Auburn. I don't think obviously Bama can't stop a nosebleed. Maybe the over is the other one to take, but
yep.
I don't know what that number is going to be, but I would lean towards Bama and whatever it is, 8.5, 9, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I know John alluded to the fact that he might be a little afraid of that over earlier, but
it's gonna be high. It's gonna be high like a Notre Dame, like a Army Navy game is low. It's gonna be like on the other side of it.
Yeah, I still think I think I ride over regardless on that one. I propose a collab, and that's fine. That's okay. You guys don't have to, you don't have to jump in on it. You can just leave me hanging. That's all right. I'm cool with it. It's okay.
You could do it. You could join.
If I'm the only one that does it, it's not a collab, RJ. All of us have to do it, or at least 2 of us, or else it's not a collab.
That's a good rule.
You can join us.
You walk into the room and you hit the air horn like DJ Khaled and you yell collab, and John's like, yeah, let's roll. Come on, my boy, Choppy. I got glasses now. I can do whatever. And I'm sitting here just with my shorts in the wind, trying to get everybody to come together on Bama Auburn over, and
just join the Central Time Zone. Join the Central Time Zone.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'd like to believe. I mean, I'm never gonna talk you off of an Alabama over. Honestly, you could probably just bet it blindly and it'll hit 60% of the time. So I don't think it's ever a bad bet, man. Honestly, just their possession is just crazy.
I'm glad we all came together on that one. I definitely like Michigan State on Sunday. It depends what the spread is. I mean, if it's at 8 as Ken Palm projects, that might be a bit much. But I do like Michigan State over Michigan. I absolutely love Florida over Ole Miss on Saturday as well. Again, let's see what the number is. If it's out to 9.5 or more, Ken Palm's got it at 9. Probably a bit too much, but anything less than 9.5, I'm on the Gators over Ole Miss. And then St. John's money line against Marquette, too. I feels like, I don't want to say a shoe-in, but we were all on that one.
I'll collab. We can collab on that one.
Let's collab.
Collab on St. John's.
And guess what? The pinwheel, the stupid Big Ten pinwheel is done. Thank God.
It is.
They got rid of it.
It's over.
Yeah. They got rid of it. It's going back to the White Sox, center field. It's a horrible thing.
That was the dumbest logo. What was the point of it?
I don't know, man. It's been there for 30 years though, and it was terrible every time.
It looked like it was from the 1970s though. That was the problem that always bothered me. And it wasn't. It was from the late 90s. It was if they had hired someone who, again, peaked in the mid to late 70s to design a logo in the late 90s.
Look, I'm from the 1970s, so I take no offense to what you just said there.
Good. I would hope not.
Zach says there was a color for every team on the pinwheel.
There was. It was still hideous.
There's a color for every team in the rainbow, Zach. Let's all get along. Come on.
Roy G. Biv.
Yep.
All right. That's going to do it. What? Come on. Jeez.
Wow.
I thought we were going to get out alive. Why'd you say that, RJ?
I did not say that. That was not me. I
That's
said
crazy.
Roy G. Biv.
Why? At the very last minute. Everything was rolling along. We'll do it again next weekend in the middle of the conference tournaments alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy. Man, with the political talk. Live coast to coast, this has been BetMGMU.
You've been listening to BetMGM U on the BetMGM Network. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the Odyssey app. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly. Get ready to experience the ultimate fusion of wagering and entertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Kicking off your morning with the Daily Tip with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger.
Over.
It's a very simple way to look at it. It's the best way to look at it.
Followed by the newly branded Bet Sweats with Joe O and Sammy P.
When I stop talking, that's when you jump in usually.
He said, ring that bell! He said, ring that bell!
Then it's You Better You Bet, hosted by Nick Costos and Femi Abebefe.
Great teams and great players get a whistle. It's happened forever. It will continue to happen.
Capped off every night with the electric Brad Evans and Ryan Horvat on BetMGM tonight.
Oh, that's a sexy phrase.
Quote Dr. Dre, creep with me and walk with me on this one.
Welcome to a new era of wagertainment. This is the BetMGM Network. Please gamble responsibly.